What's going on, guys? Welcome back here to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Manny Maradiaga, live today on July the 10th. I got another great show planned for you guys today around some more NFL topics, starting off with ESPN's top 10 running back rankings that I wanted to react to, give my thoughts on it. There were some surprises in there, so I thought I'd discuss that. Then another update on Brandon Aiyuk and his contract negotiations. What could be the repercussions of them potentially extending Brandon Aiyuk, or the flip side of that if they decided to move on. Then also, we're going to talk about Aiden Hutchinson and his expectations for the Detroit Lions in 2024, talking about all the hype around the Detroit Lions and whether or not it's deserved. That and much more on today's show. Before I get started, I want to remind you guys, if you have any questions or comments, use the tip and donations link, GSMCPodcast.net. By using that link, I'm able to see your question or comment in my chat box, read it out loud, and that way get your guys' thoughts on anything that is said on today's show. It's a massive help for this network and this show as well, so please, if you guys would, use the tip and donations link, GSMCPodcast.net. But with that being said now, we can react to the top 10 running back rankings according to ESPN. This was released back on Monday. It's the fifth iteration of ESPN's positional rankings that come out around this time every year, or at least over the last 5 years, I should say. ESPN usually surveys NFL executives, coaches, scouts to give their input on how these rankings shake out for all these position groups that they do. Since then, I know the edge rushers, their top 10 list for the edge rushers have come out. Same with the defensive tackles. But the running backs definitely caught my eye just because there were some surprises on here. So the top 10 running backs, according to ESPN, go as followed. Number 1, Christian McCaffrey. No surprise there, obviously, with the kind of season that he had. Then at number 2, Breece Hall. After the season that he had, very impressive with the New York Jets. And already 25 and under for Breece Hall. Now entering his 4th season, I believe. To be at number 2 already definitely surprised me, but that's how ESPN and all these executive coaches and scouts are feeling towards Breece Hall. So he was at number 2. Then at number 3, we have Nick Chubb. Number 4, we have Saquon Barkley, which I thought it was a little low for me. But I'll get into that a little bit later when we continue to talk about it. Then at number 5, we have Jonathan Taylor. Number 6 is Bijan Robinson. Number 7 is Josh Jacobs. Number 8 is Jahmyr Gibbs, who I didn't expect to see really any rookies on here, but Jahmyr Gibbs was on the Lions, was a better player, and became a more prominent contributor to the Lions' success as the year went on. But at number 8, if he had to be on here, that's a good spot for him, but that still caught my eye a little bit. Then at number 9, we have Derrick Henry. And number 10 is Travis Etienne. Some honorable mentions as well I thought I would mention here were DeAndre Swift, Joe Mixon, Alvin Kamara, James Cook, Isaiah Pacheco, Kenneth Walker, and Aaron Jones. And with these running back rankings, also, when you read the article, you have the rankings on there. You also have the highest ranking for some of the votes that they got. So some coaches, executives, or scouts would have had him at this position as their highest ranking. And I thought some of these were pretty interesting because Bijan's highest ranking was number 1 at some point by somebody who voted him number 1. Then Jonathan Taylor was at number 2 as his highest ranking. And the last one, Jahmyr Gibbs, got a vote as his highest ranking to be the number 3 running back in the NFL. Those 3 really just caught my eye, really, because Bijan, coming off of a rookie year. Jahmyr Gibbs, same thing. Jonathan Taylor has had a very good career so far. Last year, he was dealing with injuries, so to have his highest ranking be at number 2 puzzled me a little bit, but I can understand it a little bit as well. But back on, I guess, the biggest surprise for me was Breece Hall, going back to him. That was definitely the biggest surprise to me, and ESPN's Jeremy Fowler mentioned that various NFL executives actually consider Breece Hall to be the best running back under the age of 25, and that group includes some very talented running backs already, like Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan, Kyron Williams, who I'm a big fan of, Kenneth Walker, and James Cook. A good amount of executives in the NFL consider Breece Hall the best out of the bunch. And just on that point, it's hard to argue with that. Considering all the circumstances and everything that Breece Hall has had to play through with the quarterback play, his injury, and then coming off of that injury looking more like himself, which is pretty remarkable because he had a serious knee injury, and then the following season that looked as close as you did to your first year. It's very, very impressive. But for right now, Breece Hall, at a very young age still, now heading into this third or fourth year, I want to say, for him, the expectations this year are a lot more, not just for him, but for the entire Jets team, obviously, with Aaron Rodgers hopefully being healthy the majority of the time and getting better all over their team, all over the roster as well. Breece Hall is considered to be one of the main pieces of this entire thing, at least on the offensive side of the ball. And if you just look at last year to sort of give you an advanced look at what this running game could look like with Breece Hall, last year in 2023, obviously carrying this Jets team on his back pretty much after Aaron Rodgers went down. The passing game really wasn't anything close to what it could have been, so Breece Hall played a major role in just keeping the Jets relevant in a lot of these games. He finished with 994 yards, which was 13th in the NFL. He also had 76 receptions for 591 receiving yards and 4 receiving touchdowns as well. 95 targets too. So he had a heavy workload in the receiving end of things and also from a carries point of view because he had 223 carries to go along with that. Then you look at his scrimmage yards, which you compare to some of the best running backs. If you compare it to the top of the top in terms of the running game, he had 1,585 scrimmage yards, which was 4th most in the NFL and only 2nd most for running backs, only behind Christian McCaffrey. And you take all of those into consideration, all that information I just threw at you guys, and you remember that most of the time the Jets were playing from behind, and with the running game, that doesn't really mix. Obviously, when you want to run the ball a lot more throughout the duration of the game, it really helps and it really continues to excel at that point if you're up in games. You know, you control the pace of the game, you're running it through all 4 quarters, but instead you're going down maybe 1 or 2 scores, and now you're forced to pass the ball a lot more. And you can only imagine what Breece Hall's numbers could have been if they would have been in a lot closer games and a lot maybe more blowouts or something like that last year with how good they were projected to be. He could have been right up there with some of the best, but unfortunately that didn't work out like that. So I think that the thought of how well Breece Hall could be with everyone's expectations of the Jets being so good this year, I think that's where we get Breece Hall being at number 2. But even so, I thought maybe Nick Chubb or Saquon could have just been ahead of him just based off this year. I know it would have been a hard push for Nick Chubb just because he got injured so early on in the season. I think only in the 2nd week he got injured. But I thought Saquon could have been up there at number 2. Maybe just switch Saquon, put Saquon at number 2, Breece at number 3, and Nick Chubb at 4. Because, again, Chubb, you're going off of reputation, it seems, that at this point for the running back rankings, because Chubb did miss the most of the season, if not all of it. So to have him at number 3, I'm assuming this is just based on reputation, and that is one thing. So that I probably would have been okay with them doing that, but the hype is real for Breece Hall. A lot of people are looking forward to him making that second jump in his 4th or 3rd year, which should happen if the Jets are good. I'm anticipating him being a major part of that. But also in terms of the running back rankings, I had to throw this out there. Najee Harris not even being on there as an honorable mention. Top 10, I probably wasn't expecting top 10, but Najee not being up there as a honorable mention at least is pretty crazy to me. Pretty disrespectful because of how he's recorded a 1,000-yard season in every year he's been in the NFL. Not a lot of running backs have done that in this day and age. With the state of the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, I thought he should have at least been considered. But that's usually what you get with the Steelers and their players in a national recognition sort of way. August Fest said, we talking fantasy football or just football? This is just the football rankings. These are just ESPN's regular NFL football rankings, not fantasy football. It came out this week. They've done a lot of the positional rankings already. I think they're up to 3 now. So, yeah, they're just talking based off of reputation in the NFL. So, I recommend you going to check it out. Maybe come back here and tell me if you agree with it. But Breece Hall at number 2 was definitely the biggest surprise for me, and Jahmyr Gibbs at number 8 and Jahmyr Gibbs at number 8 also. For the season that he had, I thought he played well, but I don't know. Having a rookie in the top 10 already, maybe because the value on running backs isn't that great. I can understand it. Everyone's looking for the next best one, but I'd like to give some respect to the older running backs. I think there is some value there, but that's just me. That is the overall thoughts on the ESPN top 10 running back rankings. Let me know what you guys think of it. Go and check them out. Let me know what your guys' thoughts. Something I missed or something you don't agree on. Please let me know in the comments section of this video. But that'll wrap it up for that segment. We're going to move on to the first break of the show, and when we return, we're going to talk some more about Brandon Aiyuk and considering extending him and potentially losing out on some other players that could be in line for some contract extensions, or do you finally come to terms with moving on from Brandon Aiyuk, and are you content with the offense that you have after you've moved on from him? That is coming up after the first break. You're listening to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast.